Hello everyone, I am Rod and I am the game design instructor for the Academy of Entertainment Arts over at Dixie Hollins High School. If you are one of my students, it's Mr. Flowers to you, and welcome to this video tutorial. Okay, so we're going to be back here to finish putting on this handle. Alright. Hopefully I'm awake enough. We'll see. So this is where we're at. Hopefully everybody is here. And we have this kind of edge flow going on. Do a quick smooth preview. So this is what we're looking at if we start to smooth it. Yay. Alright, so before I get to putting this handle on, and I'll show you in the side view here, this handle connects right in between this little, like the small of the back right here, and then this one connects down here. There's a few things we can do to attach this. We can make take like a cylinder and stretch it out and bend it and contort it. We could take a cube and do the same thing, or we can take individual faces and just kind of create our own polygons to kind of map this and then create its own structure and do some extruding. Either one of those are fine. I'm going to do the cylindrical method. So I'm going to create a cylinder and drop it in here, and then I'm going to start messing with the vertices. But before I do that, I want to go over edge flow real quick. And I know throughout the tutorial I've been talking about edge flow and making sure that you're working in quads and not making triangles or whatever. And again, you might be thinking, well, what's the big deal about that? And the big deal has to do with whenever you get into doing animation or texture mapping or anything really involved with your meshes, if the geometry isn't smooth, it's going to run into problems. And you can kind of look at the way this this little spout goes. We have a quad, a quad, a quad, a quad, and they all kind of flow back. Nice, smooth, right? And then we get to here where there are these triangles. And all of a sudden it stops. That smoothness is gone. And these will actually create pinches and snags when we try to texture this. And then if we go to, let's say if we wanted to do some animation with this, these triangles aren't going to animate as well. It's actually going to bend or tear the face when it comes to rendering. So it's always best to avoid doing triangles or n-gons. That's like a hexagon or a pentagon or an octagon. Try to avoid doing those with have 5 points or 8 points or whatever, because it's just bad geometry. You don't want to really mess with that. And then when you come back and you want to modify this in some fashion, it's easier to do it if it's a quad than it is if it's like all wonky and hunky-dory. And I'm going to show you what'll happen if you try to add an edge loop to this, and there's a triangle. I'm going to go ahead up to my mesh tools. I'm going to grab edge loop, and I'm going to add an edge loop just right here. And what's going to happen is you'll see, normally if I add an edge loop, it'll go all the way around. Well, same thing if I add an edge here, it should, and you don't have to copy me in this, just want to show you. If I add an edge here, see it goes up, line goes up, everything's going through, and then it gets to this part right here. And you see how it stops? Because there's a triangle here. There's no throughway, there's no path that this loop can take to continue around. And that's kind of a snag that you'll run into if your geometry isn't pristine. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that edge and jump back into object mode. And the reason why I'm pointing that out is I'm going to have to add edge loops here so that I can cut this out and attach this handle. Same thing down here. I'm going to have to cut out where the handle is going to touch and then sew this together so it's all one continuous piece of geometry. So before I can add those loops, I have to clean up this mesh. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to go into edge mode. And inside of edge mode, I'm going to zoom into this little pocket here. See how all these guys come to a point? Well, we want these to be quads. So you don't want to just add a quad without having a line kind of going through. You want to make sure that everything's going to connect. So let's see. Let's see how this flows. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a quad. Quad, 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 right? And quad is just for quadratical. And then here is a triangle. Well, this triangle plus this triangle makes a quad. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just going to grab this little edge here. And if I cut it or delete it, this edge connects to this vertex, and that makes this quad. And this quad here connects along, so that's 1. Same thing for this triangle. I can grab this guy, cut him out, and now there's a quad. Same thing here. And just check your points. 1, 2, 3, 4. And next one, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we have a continuous, smooth flow of geometry. And you can even check that. If you jump into face mode, and you click on one face, and then double-click another face, you see how they all kind of cut through? And if we were to rotate all the way down to the bottom, see how they stop on these triangles? So, same thing down at the bottom. I'm going to cut these off. So I'm going to go and grab my edge tool. So that's F10 to get in edges. And this one I should be able to cut and make a quad. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 1. And then this one, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. This guy, and then this guy. So it should be this quad here connects, lines up with this quad, and so on and so forth. That's going to be a little bit cleaner. Nice. Occasionally when you're working in Maya, you might have a face that is highlighted that just won't unhighlight. You can just jump into face mode and click it and then unclick it, which is what I'm doing here. No biggie. You might not even have these anomalies popping up, but they're driving me crazy, so I got rid of those. Alright, so all that geometry looks good. Now I'm going to add in the spaces for where I'm going to cut for the new geometry. And if you want to know where I'm at, I'm on the back side of our vase here. I'm going to go up to our mesh tools and grab insert edge loop. Put an edge loop right about here and one right about there. I'm going to try to eyeball it to get it even. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you're OCD, you can always Control Z and then do it again. Okay, and you'll look and see that these edge loops go all the way through. And they go all the way around, just like they should. Okay? So I have those edges, and what I want to do is I'm going to need an edge along this neck so that I can cut these little squares out. So I'm going to put one right here. I'm going to be able to cut these squares out to make the section that's going to connect here. And then I'm going to come down, let's see in our picture, how far down do I need to go? So right about here is where this piece is going to connect, and I'm going to add an edge loop here. Okay, and these two I'm going to get rid of. So jump into face mode, hit Q to get rid of your tool, make sure you're in faces, and I'm going to take this edge and this, or sorry, these two faces, I'm going to delete them. And then I'm going to come up, and this face and this face I'm going to delete. And this is where I'm going to attach this piece. You can see that how they're cut out. That's going to come in here. If you wanted to get like really particular, you can make another edge loop here, which I might end up doing and cutting these ones, but I want to keep a count on how many vertices that I'm going in here, otherwise it won't match. And I know that there should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there should be 6 down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So let's add in our sphere. I'm going to hit, or sorry, our cylinder. Create polygons. Polygon. Cylinder. And I'm going to drop this guy in here. And just like we did before when we first made this mesh, I'm going to come over into our channel box, and I'm going to reset its inputs. So I'm going to make this 6-sided on the subdivisions axis. And height-wise, I'm just going to kind of guesstimate how tall I want this thing to be. It doesn't matter how tall I really make it. I can always come back and edit it as I stretch these vertices out. And then I'm going to grab my radius, bring it down. That's probably fine. So 0.5, there. And I think that should be good. Now the reason I went with 6 on this instead of making this an 8 is I have 6 connection points right here that I want to connect to. Okay, and so now what I want to do is I want to rotate this 90 degrees so that I can get these points to line up with this. If you look, there's a crease here. Okay, there's no crease going this way on this one. So I got to rotate this guy 90 in the Y. So now, if we look, this crease will line up with this crease. Alright. Now I'm going to rotate this guy forward. Jump back in here. And there's a bit of an angle to this, so I'm going to move it down and try to match the angle that's here. Alright. Move this out some. Okay, that'll work. Now to attach this to here, I'm going to have to do some fancy sewing. Before that, I want to make sure I get rid of these internal faces. So I'm going to take this guy, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one, these 6, and I'm going to cut them off. So delete those off. And the reason I'm cutting those out is we don't want any faces on the inside as we connect this. Alright. So let me get that there, and before I can connect this I need to combine these. So I'm going to go back into object mode, we're going to select both, and so before I select this guy I'm going to move it in just a little bit more. That should work. Alright, select both of them, come up to Mesh, and go to Combine. You'll see that these now become one solid object. And then I'm going to go to Mesh Tools, and I'm going to come down to Merge Vertex Tool. What this is going to let me do is it's going to let me take the vertices that are on one side of this model and connect them to a hollow piece on the other side. So like this is hollow and that's hollow. You can really connect any vertice to any vertice, but we want to sew these guys up. And the way we want to sew this is we want all of our natural edges to line up. So I'm going to grab this bottom one here, connect to that bottom one. All you gotta do is click and drag, and it should snap on. Click, drag, snap. And as you're doing this, make sure that you're connecting one direction only. So if you're connecting from the handle to the back of the neck, make sure you're doing that all the way around. If you're going to connect from the back of the neck to the handle, make sure you do that all the way around. And you might think, well, what's the big deal? Well, if I connect from here to there, and then I go from here to there, we get this jaggedness. And that's not nice to look at. So we just want to have continuous edge flow. So that's there. This one's here. And this last one here. Oops. That probably work. Let's take a look. I'm going to hit Q to get out of my tool, and then I'm going to jump into right click, come down to material attributes, and I'm going to turn my transparency up so I can see. And you might be wondering why this guy's transparency hasn't kicked in. Well, even though these have been combined, these faces still have the default shader on them, so we have to change that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into face mode, and I'm just going to select these faces. Now to show you a trick, when you go to do like a Marquee Select, don't try to select all the way through your object because you'll catch all these vertices. Instead, since these faces are stretched, you only need to select the ends of them and you can still get the whole face. So I'm just going to Marquee Select on this corner, and I'm going to get all the ones on the end and then all the ones that are part of this tube. See how that works? I'm going to right click, hold, come down to assign existing material, and drop on our transparency, and everything looks the way it should. Alright, so things that we'll need to clean up. I want these vertices to kind of line up with the curvature of this mesh, so get into F9, get rid of my Q to get rid of my tool, grab these vertices, I'm going to hit the W key, and then I'm just going to move this down and then kind of in some, trying to match the curvature of this. And I'm going to grab just this vertex here. I did a Marquee Select through because I'm getting the one on the other side that we can't see. Just going to move this. And then same thing here. Going to move that. Alright. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting this. So I'm going to go up to Mesh Tools, grab Insert Edge Loop, and I'm going to cut this where there's a major bend in this form. So right here, I'm going to cut, hit F9 and Q. So Q to get out of the tool, F9 to get back into vertex mode. Select these vertices, and then I'm going to move them up to about there, and I'll hit R so that I can shape these, and I will actually move them forward some. That way we can get this natural transition in size. So I'm actually going to add another loop here. So Y to get back into my tool, create an edge, Q to get out of the tool, F9 to get back into vertex mode, R so I can scale, W so that I can translate. So I'm going to put a cut right about here-ish. So Y to get back in my tool, I'm going to put a cut in here, 9 and, or sorry, Q and then F9. I'm going to move this down. And what I'm going to end up doing here is I'm going to rotate these guys so that the opening of this particular group is at a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to hit E to rotate and then rotate. Resize a little bit. Alright, I'm going to grab these ones at the end. Move them down. Alright, so I'm going to cut here. So Y to get back into my tool. Give it a cut. Q to get out of the tool. F9 to get back into vertex mode. I'm going to select these vertices. And I will rotate them down. Pull them a little bit. Just widen them. And remember, it doesn't have to be pristine as we're going along this, because we're going to add a smooth group to it. So any, like this curve here, I'm not going to worry about that too much. This is probably going to be fine. If I really wanted to, I could move this curve over. So there's always options. You don't have to be too anal retentive. I try not to be. Otherwise, I would drive myself nuts. I used to be really OCD about all this, and it took forever to model. Some more cut. Q, 9. Grab these guys. And you're thinking, these ones are squished. Well, they are kind of. We're just going to move this group further down. So I want this to ultimately be this edge here. So I want these to kind of line up, but right now they'll smush. So I want to probably 1 or 2 more cuts will really get this here. So mesh, sorry, Y to reset our tool. Q and then F9. Let's rotate these. And then scale them out. And then I think another cut will probably do. And we can do this indefinitely. We can always create a cut and then stretch them out and create a cut and stretch them out. The system doesn't care so long as we're consistent, you know. And as I bring this here, I want to keep in mind that I will eventually want to attach this spot to here. So I'm going to want a clean edge that I can cut on. So I'm going to move these guys about as close as I can get without touching. I'm going to end up putting an edge loop here so that I can add this piece. Let's go ahead and widen these out. Grab this, move this in. And I will do one more cut and kind of bend this down. So one more here. Q, F9. Okay, so there's that one. I need one more right here to line this up. So get you. And you can move this once you create it. I just usually don't because I want to jump in and modify my vertices. But you can move this right after you create it by hitting the translation tool. And that should work. Before I clean up this edge, I want to attach this, and then I'll come back and clean this up. So I'm going to right click, jump back into object mode, and then I'm going to come in and I want to make sure that I can do this and have these two faces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I have my 6 there. Jump into face mode, so F11, 1, 2, let's delete these. And this time, as I attach these, I'm going to attach the tube to the back of this thing, because these guys are about the same width, so it'll work out just fine. Mesh tools, mesh tools, and then come down, merge vertex tool. First point I'm going to grab is the top corner piece, and I'm going to attach it to this corner piece. So corner, corner, or seam, I guess you would call that a seam. This one to there. That works. This one to here. That one to there. Sorry if it's a little weird to look at. You just kind of have to get used to figuring out where your vertexes are, or vertices are as you work. You'll get used to being able to spot them. That should all be sewn on. And it is. Okay. I'm going to get back into object mode. And I'm also going to adjust, so go into material attributes, and I'm going to turn my transparency down so I can see. And if you look at this, we do have a little bit of distortion, like right here it gets kind of fat, and right down here it gets really fat. So we don't have an image plane this way that shows us how this is supposed to be, so we're going to have to eyeball it. So what I'm going to do is jump back into vertex mode. Come here on the side. Actually, no, I won't do it that way. I'll do it this way. This way you can get an idea of how to do this anyway. I want to do this edge. I could Marquee Select, but I can't see what's on the other side. So to make sure that I'm getting the edge that I want, I'm going to grab this vertice, double click, and it should grab all of them. Hit R, and I'm going to resize these. I'm going to turn this so that I'm facing the back of this handle. And instead of using the middle, because I like the thickness here, but I don't like the thickness here, I'm going to move this in. So I grabbed the little red one. Okay. And I will kind of pull this in just a little bit more. That works. Same thing down here. I'm going to click on this vertex. And if you don't want to see your widget in the way, you can hit Q and you'll just see the object. And then double click. So I have that. Bring up R. Again, I'm going to just scale it down in the X. Maybe pop it out a little bit more in the Z so it's more round. Come down to the next section. Let's pull this in. Okay. I'm also going to grab this vertice down here, that one that's making a bit of a pinch. See how these edges are kind of pinched in this corner? I don't want that. So I'm going to pull this up. so that it's more of a rounded effect. And then same thing down here. I'm going to grab this bottom one. I'm going to pull this down so this rounds out. You want to try to avoid things that are kind of getting like really pinched into like little corners and stuff if you can. It'll be easier to model and texture later. All right. These ones here need to come out some. So that one, this one, and this one. Let's see if I can get these to come out a little bit. And then for this side, see how this is kind of fat here? To kind of trim this down, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to go into face mode. And editing a face is kind of like editing 4 vertices at once. So I'm going to grab these 3. And then I'm going to grab these 3. So shift click, grab these 3 and these 3. I'm going to hit R, and then I'm going to scale these. Hopefully I'm not distorting this too much. Getting a bit of a pinch right here, but we can clean that up. Let's see. Don't mind me, I'm just eyeballing this so it's not going to be too distorted. Alright, so these are kind of stretched out this way, and what I'm going to do here is kind of the same thing. I'm going to hit F9, and I'm going to grab this group. Let's pull that back. Yeah, I'm going to pull it back. I know I'm off the track here. I'm just going to do a little bit of finagling to kind of make this smooth out. And then I'm going to grab these faces in the front and pull those back. Remember, don't be so OCD. You're going to adjust the form and flow of this as you go. Grab this vertex and this vertex. Pull those back in. And this middle one, pull that back some. You and you. You can see all I'm doing is just reshaping this so that I'm getting a closer form to this without it being so bulky. And then this group, I'm going to grab this whole section, just kind of pull it back some. And yes, it is a little bit off the track. Again, don't be so OCD. Follow it to the best that you can, but it doesn't have to be 100%. Now, if you're working for an artist, or like if you're doing artwork for a production company, you're going to want to get as close as you can, but again, you don't have to be right on the money with every vertex. mainly because this is just a rough form anyway. So once we smooth this out, we're going to have a nicer flow. And that's going to be pretty close. So this right here, this little corner piece, or sorry, this end piece, I'm going to fix this. First things first. See anything wrong here? Yeah, we want to make these quads. So to kind of figure out which ones to cut, that all depends. This edge here, the one that goes up the spine, I'm going to consider this to be the natural edge that kind of loops all the way through, right? So this line I'm going to keep. So this line, probably going to go ahead and, if I snag. Actually, on this one I might not be able to. Let's see what happens. One, that's a quad. Quad, and then this last one. Yep, there we go. Quad, quad, quad. And that should work. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It does sort of break this edge, which I hate to do. But if I wanted to, and I wanted to put a edge loop in here, it should go all the way through. I'm going to test that. And that one did go through, but it gave me a cut that I didn't like. Alright. Trying to think if there's any way that I can keep this edge. That should be okay. I'm going to grab this middle one. And I'm going to pull that out. One, 2, 3, 4. I'm just checking my vertices. And I'm going to go back into object mode. I'm going to hit 3 to preview it. Let's see how this goes. Yeah, it looks like it'll smooth out pretty well without much of any distortion. There is this spine here that I'm going to take care of. You see how this is, even in the smooth, you can see that this is a spine kind of pushing out. I'm going to want to adjust that. So back into rough mode, and then grab this guy. I was going to pull this in. Now if I go back into smooth preview, we don't have that weird freaky spine thing going on. And these all connect nice and clean all the way through. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so that will wrap it up for this one. Our next video, I'm going to cover how to UV map this, and then we can get into texture mapping. All right, I'll see you guys next time.